And this is one of them. I don't know.
Hey, if you
put
could
one
do
foot
one
in
thing
front
and
of the
impact everything
Yeah,
else,
yeah.
we want to know about that.
All right. So one thing that drives me crazy about social media and the way that we talk about health and lifestyle in particular is that you get sent away with they're evidence based, right? There's lots of studies to support them, but you get sent away with a list of like 20 things that you need to do for your brain health or your heart health, for longevity. And one thing that I know, I've worked as a coach in many different settings, as a health coach, as a sports coach. One thing I know is that if you give somebody 20 things to do, they will do 0 things. And that's just completely normal, right? That's because you just don't know where to start. Like, how do I even start with this? And so, one thing that's been very cool for me to see as I've kind of learned more and more about all these different areas is that it's really not a list of things. Like, they're all interconnected. So the book kind of builds to this model that I call the 3S model, that kind of explains what I think are the majority of modifiable factors when it comes to building and maintaining cognitive function. And so the first S is stimulus, and we've kind of talked about that, right? If you want to build function, you need to really challenge our brains. But once you stimulate your brain or some area of the brain or networks in the brain for some specific task, those areas of the brain then need a supply, which is the second S, of various things in order to do the job that you're asking them to do. So they need a good supply of oxygen, which means you need good heart health. We've already talked about why that's important. So the oxygen, the blood can just get to those areas. And then you need a supply of some kind of energy substrate just to actually run the system, right? So it's usually glucose, but there are some other things that could be used as well, right? So then you need good, what we call metabolic health, so avoiding, ideally, or treating things like type 2 diabetes, which affect our ability to regulate our blood sugar. And then you need a supply of nutrients that kind of build the whole structure or make neurotransmitters and allow the cells to talk to each other. And so important things there include vitamin D and omega-3 fatty acids and B vitamins and things like that we can get from our diet. And so we've stimulated the brain, we've brought in a supply of things to do that specific job, and then, like I mentioned earlier, if you actually want the brain to adapt to the stimulus, you need it to rest and recover. So this is the support bucket, it's the third S. So sleep is really important. There are a whole other range of factors that can help to support adaptation in the brain. So we know that hormonal status is important. There are factors that the body releases during things like exercise that can support neuroplasticity. And then we want to avoid anything that impairs that process. So important factors include smoking, excessive alcohol, chronic stress, which sort of prevents the brain from really switching off and recovering and adapting. Air pollution plays a role here, oral health and dental health, things that sort of increase inflammation and certain aspects of oxidative stress. And I've said, like, those probably words trigger you when you're reading those other books, because they're kind of like thrown out there, but we can actually measure these things and we know that they impair brain function. And so all of these things are connected because they actually drive each other and respond to each other. So when you stimulate a certain part of the brain, that night, that part of the brain actually sleeps better. It has a greater drive for sleep because those things are connected, right? You stimulate it and then it knows it needs to recover and adapt afterwards. And when you stimulate the brain, it kind of drives an increase in the supply of the things for the brain to do its job. And actually, so like on that first point, there's a very interesting study where older adults were given a brain training program on a computer for a few weeks, and then they slept better because actually their brains were stimulated and their brains needed to sleep better, so they slept better. And so what that means is that wherever you start in any of those buckets, the whole kind of system starts to shift, and we know that. So if you start to do a little bit more physical activity, then if it's something like dancing, right, you're getting a physical stimulus, you're improving your heart health, you're getting a cognitive stimulus, we know you're going to sleep better afterwards. If you do start to sleep better, instead you just like focus on sleeping, we know that your blood pressure improves, which is really important for your heart health. We know that inflammation decreases. We know that the next day you're more sociable, so you're actually going to like connect to people better. We know that you're more likely to do a cognitively demanding task because we avoid those when we're tired. So all of these different changes that we could make actually sort of shift the whole network in our favor. So that means that wherever you feel you know, like you have some motivation or impetus, or it feels doable and interesting to you, whatever's interesting for you to start with, just one thing, you know that actually you'll start to shift multiple different things at the same time.